Welcome back. So we were just talking about personality traits, and part of the measure that affects your personality and certainly your ability to perform work is your intelligence. So we generally define intelligence as this capacity to rapidly and fluidly acquire, process, and apply information, right? So it's not just what you know, but it's how you process new information. And your information processing capability, right, is important in an organization because there's always new information coming in. We have to process it, right? And it's generally positively affected, which means the more positively affected by your mental ability, which means, of course, the more mental ability you have, the better you can process information. But quite frankly, that's something that comes from practice. So your brain is your brain, and you have the abilities you have, but it's like exercise. The more you practice something like running, the better you get at it. Same thing with processing lots of information. The more you use your brain, the more you are in an active environment where you're processing information, the better you get at it. Right? So the advice here is to not disengage, say I'm not very good at that, then get out there and practice it, right? Keep yourself mentally active both inside and outside of work. And if you happen to find yourself in a lower level job where you're not doing a lot of information processing because you're just serving up the fries at the fast food restaurant, then you should work on this outside of work. Get some hobbies, join some clubs, get some activities where you keep yourself actively engaged. Which brings up the theory. This Garner came up with this theory of lots of multiple intelligence. For instance, some people are really good at linguistics. They have a really good ear for different languages, and they pick them up very quickly. Other people really good at math, which some people will tell you it's a type of language. Some people are really good at math, aren't so good at languages. Some people are really, really good at languages, not so strong in math. Music, somewhat related to math, but we find some people really good at music, or some people really good at dance, right? Body movement and control. Athletes, dancers, those type people. Maybe math's not their thing, but they're really good at controlling their body. They can remember moves and repeat them very well, where some of us, like me, not so much. Some people are really good at spatial images in space. So I went through college as a mechanical engineer, and we certainly had people who were really, really good in the engineering world at imagining things with different spatial relations, right? They could picture like a car engine, all the parts individually, and then how they'd all fit together, and they could build that whole model up right in their head. Some people are really good at interpersonal things, being aware of other people's feelings. Some people are really good at intrapersonal, right, their own self-awareness and their own personal feelings. Which brings up an interesting area called emotional intelligence, right? So we have IQ for intelligence quotients, and emotional intelligence is your emotional quotient. So in our textbook we define it as the ability to perceive and express emotions, to understand and use them, and to manage emotions in oneself and others. Now, we were just talking about being smart, right? High IQ and processing information, and it's pretty obvious how as a manager getting lots of inputs from lots of different areas, that would help you. So the question is, does emotional intelligence help you in the workplace, right? And the answer is very clearly yes. There's lots of objective information out there that successful people tend to be above average in emotional intelligence. So what is it to be emotionally intelligent? Right, so some dimensions. Self-awareness, being aware of what you're feeling. I realize I'm in a good mood today, so even though somebody's presenting me an idea and I think it looks good, I need to be careful because maybe it's not so good. I just feel like agreeing with people because I'm in a really good mood. Or, more likely, I'm really cranky today and the first person gives me bad news, I'm going to take their head off. Well, that's probably not the best way to be a manager, so you need to be self-aware that you're in a bad mood and you're really not in the mood to discuss whatever's coming up. Right? Self-motivation, because they're aware of their own emotions, they're able to help control them, and they persist through obstacles. They can self-manage themselves, right? So the way I like to term it is people with emotional intelligence understand and control their own emotions. I'll say that again. They can understand their own emotions and they control their own emotions. So I can do two things with my emotions. I both understand them and I control them. It's not okay to go and lose your cool at work around those people you're trying to lead, people you're trying to manage, or even worse, the customers, your bosses, those type people, right? Now, people with high emotional intelligence also have empathy, right? They sense how others are feeling, and that gives them better social skills. They can handle different situations, right? So empathy is I understand how others are feeling. It's not that I have to agree that those are what I would consider proper emotions or a proper reaction to something, but nevertheless, I understand it. Right? So I think of emotional intelligence in the simple terms of I understand and control my own emotions, and I understand the emotions of others. So if someone comes in my office, they're very worried about something they heard, and I think, oh, that's no big deal. Why is this guy so worried about this? I have to use my empathy, and I have to say, okay, it's not a big deal to me, but it's a big deal to them. Why? Because of certain reasons, and I have to deal with that, right? If I'm going to get any work out of them, I have to understand that. So again, emotional intelligence is something that successful people rate highly, and actually politicians tend to be really, really good at this because they can read other people. Salespeople tend to be really good at this, right? They have empathy, they understand who they're talking to, how they're feeling, and they're able to use that and to make a connection with them to help with their sales, right? So again, those are skills you can practice. Can you practice understanding what your emotions, how you're feeling, and controlling them? You bet. Can you practice reading other people, understanding how they're feeling and dealing with those? Certainly, right? Now you know that emotional intelligence directly related to success in life, generally, both inside of work and outside of work, right? So you should think about how you might practice them, read up on it, right? And when you're not at work, when you're away from work or not at school studying, right? Those are great things to practice, right? It can only help you, and remember, it's directly related to people's success in life. So it's my strong suggestion you give that some serious consideration. All right, and this concludes chapter 3.